Alright, hello guys. In this video we're going to be talking about that quick little snowstorm that is going to hit the northeastern United States, particularly New York State, and then in through New England. Now, before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you dig weather related content, and also make sure to share this with friends and family if they do live in these areas that are being affected. Now let's get right into things. We're looking at our current watches, warnings, and advisories, and as you can see, the only thing we have going on here is for some of those Berkshires and southern Green Mountains there in Vermont, New York, just to the east of Albany, and then right there in the very northwestern region of Massachusetts. We do have winter weather advisories, and this is actually the region that we do expect to see the most snowfall out of any region during this event, so this makes the most sense that those regions would have that. We're looking at the potential for up to 6 inches of snow in that region. Again, it's going to be quick, it's going to not be too major, but it is worth mentioning here, as I like to make videos for most winter storms. Now, we're going to take a look at our simulated radar here, where things are going to get very exciting. We're going to be looking at our NAM 3KM model, which is a very high-resolution model, and we're going to be taking it hour by hour, or 2 hours by 2 hours. Okay, let's get right into things. This is starting around this morning, so on radar, we actually already have more snow all over the place than this, but this was a couple hours ago, because I'm going to be forecasting this entire storm's total snowfall, even what's already fallen. So we do have a little bit of snowfall entering the state of New York here earlier this morning. We're going to move on 2 hours, and this is probably what it looks like by now. Pretty widespread snowfall throughout New York, and it's about to start entering New England, including areas close to Boston, close to a lot of areas in coastal Maine as well. Some bigger towns for sure. As we move on a frame, you can see some of those Berkshires and Green Mountains start to get snowfall in those heaviest impacted regions for sure. Our low pressure system is located just underneath the Finger Lakes there. We have moderate snowfall going on for a lot of regions to your north. I don't think that the intensity of snow is going to be the struggle as far as accumulation here. I think that it's going to be so quick that we don't really get enough time to see a ton of snowfall occur. Now, for some of the areas around the Great Lakes in New York, we might be having some lake effect snow later tonight. Today is the 6th, so if you hear me say tonight, I mean the 6th in through the 7th. Here, the snowstorm is only going to last from the 6th through the 7th, but I think in New York, this storm will be done later this evening, and really we're going to start to see lake effect snow come off the lakes, and that could actually pump your totals up past 6 inches and closer to maybe even 10 inches if you get right in that bullseye of lake effect snow. That's really tricky to forecast though. So let's move on one more frame, and we can start to see a lot of Massachusetts starting to get some of that moderate snowfall, as well as still some areas up there in New York State for sure, getting some of that moderate to heavy snowfall, all of Vermont. And New Hampshire, you're starting to feel it by this point too. But Maine, it's going to be very interesting. Interior Maine, we're not really looking at too much, but coastal Maine, you could be getting some light to moderate snow, but not as much accumulation as areas to your west for sure. Now, we're about to move on and continue to look at our Futurecast radar as things start to approach the coast of Maine and things continue to show moderate snowfall for the Berkshires, Green Mountains, areas near Boston as well. Alright, so as you can see now by this frame, this is going to be later this afternoon and I would say into the evening as well. We see the heaviest of the snow is located in the Green Mountains and the Berkshires, and that makes sense with where our winter weather advisories were and where our heaviest snowfall is expected at this point. Southern New Hampshire as well is getting a pretty good amount of snow. In Boston, it's going to be very tricky. You might end up seeing some snow from this one, but it's the same amount of chance that you don't see any snowfall, and really maybe you see some flakes, but really the snow could just stay just to your north. But if you're just to the north of downtown Boston, actually, you could end up getting maybe even a dusting from this one, or maybe a little bit more, depending on how this one shapes up. Now, let's move on one more frame, and you can see coastal Maine starting to get impacted by this one, but still the Berkshires and Green Mountains are getting some moderate to heavy snowfall. It's just sticking around for you guys, which is a good part of the reason why we think you guys will get the most snowfall. But up and down through Vermont, we definitely have the moderate snowfall still going on, as well as through New Hampshire, northern Massachusetts as well. But Boston, we're starting to switch over to maybe rain by this point. It's going to be messy for sure down in some of those regions for sure. But coastal Maine, we're getting some of that moderate snowfall by this point. Let's move on one more frame, and this is going to be towards later tonight. I would say this is probably around 9 p.m., And we see southern New Hampshire, we're getting moderate snowfall, light to moderate snowfall. Same story for Vermont and the Berkshires by this point. Pretty much wrapping up New York State, as you can see. We're done with the snowstorm, but again, some of those lake effect bands starting to set up for New York. We can't really forecast for sure where those will set up, but we know that in some areas it'll be pretty much happening. And when it does happen, you'll see much accumulation from that for sure. And if you live in those areas, you know how that goes. Now, for coastal Maine, this is where most of the storm is going on by this point. Let's move on one more frame towards, I would say, this is right around 11 p.m. And yeah, so the snowfall is basically ending for a lot of regions. We have snowfall in the form of snow showers going on for a lot of New England, and then lake effect snow in New York and Pennsylvania there. But not much else besides that. The storm has really moved far enough offshore to where the snow has ended as far as the snow that's associated with this low pressure system. All right, and then by time we're at about 1 a.m., it is all said and done. And then one more frame, you can see we move towards about 8 a.m., and we still see some of that lake effect snow going on for New York, and that's why I think that we will see a lot of accumulation from that potentially. Now we're about to move on from our model's snowfall forecast, and after that I'm going to show you my forecasted snowfall map from Direct Weather, which is going to be very exciting as well. Alright, so first off, we're looking at our NAMS snowfall forecast. In those darker blue colors, that's where we're looking at maybe nothing really sticking to maybe a dusting of snow. But as we get into the lighter blues, almost gray colors, very light gray colors, that's where we're at about 1 inch to 3 inches of snow, which is where it starts to obviously accumulate. And then in the purple colors, you can see mostly there for the Berkshires and Green Mountains, like I said. This is where we're looking at mostly 4 to 6 inches of snow, and there is a little bit of pink located there in the southern Green Mountains where they're indicating we could reach about 6 inches of snow. So that's why I said 3 to 6. That seems to be a pretty fair range for the areas there in the Berkshires and the Green Mountains, as well as a little bit of New York there near the Berkshires. I don't know if you consider those ones that are in New York, the Berkshires as well, but it is a hilly region or almost borderline mountainous region. And we will also see upwards of 4 to 6 inches of snow for that region. Now, this is after the time frame where the lake effect snow could have ended, and you can see just to the east and north of those Finger Lakes regions, we do see where there is potential for 4 to 6 inches of snow there as well after the lake effect snow. In my snowfall map, though, I don't include lake effect snow potential because it's so hard to pinpoint where it's going to be that it's pointless. So I feel like it's better to just mention, hey, there's going to be lake effect snow after this somewhere. We don't know exactly where, and that would really increase the total. So if you're near the lakes in New York, just be on the lookout for that because that could potentially happen. That's going to be more of a nowcast type situation. Now here's your RGEM model, and this is actually my favorite model of all time. I've mentioned this before, and we do see the potential for 6 inches plus in some of those lake effect regions there near New York to the north of the Finger Lake regions on this map. But you can see the southern Green Mountains there. We do see 3 to 6 inches of snow for those regions, and also the regions to the west of Albany as well. Now this model is our HRDPS model, and this is the even more high resolution version of the RGEM model. So it does actually, it's kind of like how the NAM has a 3 km model and a 12 km model. The RGEM is a 10 km, and then I believe this one is something like also like a 4 km, something like that. So we have those purplish pink colors there in those lake effect regions. This one has the lake effect north of the Finger Lakes and to the east of the Finger Lakes as well. And then we see those southern Green Mountains and Berkshires getting 3 to 6 inches as well on this model. So this one's in pretty good agreement on that as well. Now we're about to get into our official snowfall forecast, which is going to be super, super exciting to see what we're forecasting for this storm officially. Starting out with our white region, this is our 1 to 3 inch region, or dusting to 3 inch region, and we see Buffalo, we see Watertown, we see Syracuse, Albany, Manchester, New Hampshire there, not Boston. I don't think Boston is a sure thing for accumulation like I've mentioned before, but we see some of those towns like Burlington, Newport, all of those areas in Vermont, and then we see Portland, Bangor, and Bar Harbor in that dusting to 3 inches as well. But areas in that interior region of Maine, we're not really looking at too much accumulation. It cuts off right around the New Hampshire-Maine border, and then we don't see too much outside of those regions for Lewelton, Clayton Lake, Caribou, Halton. All of these regions don't look to see any accumulations. We do have a 3 to 6 inch region, or actually 2 of them. One to the west of Albany there for some of those hilly regions, down into some of those Catskills. And this is an area that typically does see more accumulations than the areas to the east. And then also areas from Rutland, Vermont, and to the south in those southern Green Mountains and the Berkshires alike, areas to the east of Albany. So areas to the west of Albany and areas to the east of Albany seem to be the most likely regions for 3 to 6 inches. Though, for Albany and areas in between, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some areas get 3 to 6 inches. Just putting that out there. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.